Mornings in San Diego, California always began with gentle sunlight. Emily Harrison stood by the kitchen window, her 9-month pregnant belly prominent, gazing at the vibrant purple bougainvillea flowers blooming in the garden. She was experiencing the happiest period of her life. "Good morning, beautiful wife." Hearing her husband Michael's voice from behind, she turned to see him in his perfectly pressed suit as always, smiling with a coffee cup in hand. Michael was a talented engineer who held a management position at one of San Diego's leading IT companies. Even after 7 years of marriage, he was still the ideal husband who kissed Emily goodbye every morning and listened to her daily experiences every evening when he returned home. "How's the baby doing?" Michael asked, placing his hand on Emily's belly. "Very active. There was lots of movement last night," Emily replied with a smile. "The baby always responds when your voice is heard." Michael's eyes shone with tenderness. "Because it's our miracle child." For both of them, this pregnancy was truly a miracle. They had begun fertility treatments in their 3rd year of marriage and had repeated cycles of disappointment and hope every month for 4 long years. Michael never blamed Emily when hormone treatments made her ill, continuing to support her without fail. They had tried in vitro fertilization several times, but all attempts had failed. When they decided to try artificial insemination as their last hope, Emily had almost given up. However, the news of pregnancy that finally came transformed their lives completely. Emily could never forget Michael's tears when they saw the 2 lines on the pregnancy test. That day, they held each other and cried, pledging their deep love for this small life. During the pregnancy, Michael's devotion amazed everyone around them. During the severe morning sickness period, he would leave work early to care for Emily, and once she entered her stable period, they would visit baby stores together every weekend to gather everything they needed. From assembling the crib to redecorating the room, he took the initiative in everything. "If labor starts today, call me immediately," Michael reminded her as always before leaving for work. "Even if I'm in a meeting, I'll definitely answer." "I know. But there's still a week until the due date," Emily replied with a laugh. After Michael left for work, Emily did some light prenatal yoga and checked the final preparations for the baby. The hospital bag was already prepared by the entrance, and the contact list for when labor began was posted on the refrigerator. Everything was perfectly prepared. In the afternoon, Emily's daily routine was to walk in the nearby park. She would sit on benches with friends who were also pregnant, sharing their anxieties and expectations about childbirth. Everyone envied what an ideal husband Michael was. "Emily is so fortunate. You don't find husbands like Michael very often." "That's right. Since they know we've been longing for a child for so long, he probably treasures her even more." Emily always felt filled with gratitude from the bottom of her heart when listening to such conversations. Because they had overcome the difficult period of fertility treatments together, they both understood the weight of this happiness. In the evening, when Michael returned home, they would sit close together on the sofa and discuss the final preparations for childbirth. The shortest route to the hospital, the maternity taxi phone number, the order for contacting Emily's parents, everything was perfectly planned. "I have a regular checkup first thing tomorrow morning," Emily said while checking her appointment book. "The doctor said the baby could be born any day now." "I see. Should I come with you?" "It's okay. Don't you have an important presentation tomorrow?" Michael thought for a moment before nodding. "That's right. But if anything happens, call me immediately." That night, they discussed baby names in bed. They had decided on Ethan for a boy and Sophia for a girl. Since they had chosen to keep the gender secret until birth, they would soon know which name would be used. "What kind of child do you think it will grow up to be?" Emily asked, resting her head on Michael's chest. "I hope it will be kind and caring like you," Michael replied, stroking her hair. "And it would be wonderful if the baby grows to love science like me." Emily smiled. Everything was perfect. A loving husband, the long-awaited baby, a warm home. She had never felt such happiness in her life. Tomorrow's checkup would confirm that birth was indeed approaching. The two fell asleep peacefully while talking about the new chapter of life that would begin the next day. At the next morning's regular checkup, Emily's attending physician, Dr. Rodriguez, smiled while looking at the ultrasound images. The baby is in excellent condition. The cervix is beginning to dilate gradually. There's a high possibility that labor will begin today or tomorrow. Emily's heart raced. The time was finally coming. In the car driving home from the clinic, she called Michael. "Honey, the doctor said the baby could be born any day now. Good luck with your presentation today." "Thank you. I should be finished by this afternoon, so don't overexert yourself until then. If anything happens, call me immediately." Around 2 p.m., while Emily was preparing a light lunch in the kitchen, she felt mild pain in her lower abdomen. At first she thought it was false labor, but the pain gradually became regular and stronger. Looking at the clock, the pains were coming at approximately 10-minute intervals. Emily took deep breaths and tried the relaxation techniques she had learned during pregnancy. However, 30 minutes later, the pain intervals had shortened to 7 minutes. This was definitely real labor. She frantically called Michael, but he didn't answer as he was in the middle of his presentation. Emily left a message on his voicemail. "Michael, I think labor has started. I'm heading to the hospital first, so come as soon as you get this message." She explained the situation to her neighbor, Sarah Johnson, and arranged for her to drive to the hospital. Sarah was an experienced mother who had raised 3 children and had looked after Emily throughout her pregnancy. "It's okay, Emily. First births take time. Michael will be there soon," Sarah encouraged her while driving. When they arrived at the maternity ward of San Diego General Hospital, Nurse Nancy welcomed them warmly. Nancy was an experienced midwife who had guided Emily in the prenatal classes. "Emily, good job. How frequent are the contractions?" "They're now 5 minutes apart," Emily replied while enduring the pain. Before being guided to the delivery room, routine procedures and examinations were conducted. The cervical dilation, the baby's heart rate, Emily's blood pressure, everything showed normal values. Things are progressing well. But it looks like it will still take some time. "Where's your husband?" "He's in the middle of a presentation and I can't reach him. But I think he'll be here soon." Around 4 p.m., Michael finally called. "Emily. Are you okay? I'm driving there now. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Hearing Michael's voice, Emily shed tears of relief. Fighting labor alone was more difficult than she had imagined. When Michael arrived at the hospital, Emily had already been moved to the main delivery room. He rushed in, sweating profusely, and immediately took Emily's hand. "Sorry I'm late. The presentation ran long and I had turned off my phone." "It's okay. I'm glad you're here." Emily squeezed her husband's hand back firmly. Nancy explained the situation to Michael. "The cervix is 6 centimeters dilated. Things are progressing well, but since this is a first birth, it will probably take several more hours." A long period began from there. With each wave of contractions, Michael held Emily's hand, rubbed her back, and continued offering words of encouragement. "You can do this. I'm here with you. We'll meet our baby soon. Keep going." Supported by her husband's presence, Emily overcame each wave of contractions. Michael showed no signs of fatigue and stayed by Emily's side constantly. He would occasionally wipe the sweat from her forehead or give her ice chips to suck on. After 8 p.m., the contractions became even more frequent and the pain more intense. Emily continued with her breathing techniques while occasionally grimacing in pain. "Just a little more, Emily. I can see the baby is coming down," Nancy encouraged. Michael gently spoke while stroking Emily's hair. "You're amazing. Watching you work so hard makes me love you even more. Around 10 p.m., Dr. Rodriguez appeared in the delivery room. After an internal examination, it was confirmed that the cervix was fully dilated. Now, Emily. This is it. When the next contraction comes, push hard. The final stage on the delivery table began. Emily gripped her husband's hand and pushed with all her strength, following the instructions of the doctor and nurse. Michael stood right beside her head, stroking her sweat-dampened hair while breathing together with her. You can do this. Just a little more. I can see the head. One more time, push hard, Dr. Rodriguez's voice rang out. Emily summoned her last bit of strength. 7 years of marriage, 4 years of fertility treatments, 9 months of pregnancy, and this long labor, everything had been for this moment. Just a little more, Nancy cheered. Tears welled up in Michael's eyes. Emily, you're the strongest woman in the world. Our baby is being born. At 11:23 p.m., the baby's cry finally echoed through the delivery room. Emily looked up at the ceiling, tears streaming down her face from relief and joy. It was the end of a very long journey. Congratulations. It's a healthy baby, Dr. Rodriguez's bright voice could be heard. Emily was exhausted but felt happiness from the bottom of her heart. Michael was also crying while holding his wife's hand. We did it, Emily. Our baby is born. A warm atmosphere filled the delivery room, and the medical staff were also smiling. However, the moment Dr. Rodriguez lifted the baby, the air in the delivery room froze. His hands trembled slightly, and clear confusion appeared on the face of this usually calm and composed doctor. Nurse Nancy also wore a similar expression while exchanging glances with the doctor. Despite her exhaustion, Emily sensitively detected this subtle change. A shadow of anxiety suddenly crept into her heart, which had been wrapped in the pain and relief of childbirth. Doctor. What's wrong? Is the baby okay? Emily's voice was filled with the instinctive worry of a mother. Love for the life she had finally conceived after long fertility treatments was already filling her heart. After a moment's hesitation, Dr. Rodriguez tried to regain his professional composure. However, the furrow in his brow only deepened. Though the baby's cries were strong and healthy, something was clearly different from what he had expected. The baby is healthy. The crying is strong and breathing is normal. Dr. Rodriguez answered while carefully choosing his words. However, his voice contained a slight hesitation. Michael held his wife's hand while carefully observing the doctor's expression. Having worked in the IT industry for many years, he was skilled at reading subtle changes in people's expressions. Something was clearly happening. Doctor, is there some kind of problem? Michael asked. Nancy wrapped the baby in a warm towel while sending a glance to Dr. Rodriguez. Between them was the wordless communication cultivated through years of experience. This kind of situation was a first for them as well. First, let me explain about the baby's health condition, Dr. Rodriguez began in a calm tone. The baby is completely healthy. The weight is appropriate, and all bodily functions are working normally. Emily breathed a sigh of relief. Being healthy was the most important thing. However, the doctor's expression remained clouded. However, Dr. Rodriguez paused. The baby's appearance may require some explanation. Heavy silence pressed down on the delivery room. Emily's heart began beating violently again. Michael's hand gripped hers more tightly. What do you mean? Emily's voice trembled softly. Dr. Rodriguez took a deep breath and tried to find the most appropriate words. In 30 years as an obstetrician, this was the first time he had faced such a situation. The baby's skin color. He chose his words carefully, appears to be different from both parents. Emily's mind went blank. The skin color was different. What did that mean? Both she and Michael were white, and there was no special background in either family lineage. What does that mean? Michael asked instead. Confusion was clearly evident in his voice. Nancy was preparing to show the baby to Emily, but Dr. Rodriguez shook his head slightly. First, the parents needed to be mentally prepared. The baby clearly has African features, Dr. Rodriguez stated frankly. The skin color, hair texture, facial features, everything indicates this. Emily's world collapsed in an instant. African features. That was impossible. Neither her family line nor Michael's had any such background. Isn't that a mistake? Emily asked in confusion. Dr. Rodriguez sadly shook his head. I've delivered thousands of babies over 30 years. There's no mistake. Michael's face turned pale. In his eyes, along with confusion, some other emotion began to dwell. It was a cold light that resembled anger. About the baby. Dr. Rodriguez began to speak again. At that moment, something exploded in Emily's heart. The long-awaited child finally conceived after lengthy fertility treatments. The life she had carefully nurtured for 9 months. However, the reality that this baby had completely different features from them. Various possibilities raced through her mind. A mix-up at the hospital. Medical error. Or was something completely different happening? Please let me see, Emily said in a trembling voice. Nancy slowly turned the baby toward Emily. At that moment, Emily couldn't believe her eyes. Certainly, that small face was beautiful, healthy, and full of vitality. However, the skin color was clearly different from hers and Michael's. How? Emily was at a loss for words. Michael stared at Emily. In his gaze, the loving expression from before was gone. Instead, complex emotions of suspicion and disappointment were present. Emily, Michael's voice was low and cold. Could you explain this to me? Emily noticed Michael's change and felt new fear. She could tell her husband suspected her. However, she herself couldn't understand what was happening at all. I don't know either, Emily answered tearfully. I have no idea what's happening. After heavy silence, Dr. Rodriguez spoke again. In situations like this, we need to consider several possibilities. First, I recommend conducting a DNA test. Michael's expression became even more severe. He fully understood what the words DNA test implied. In other words, confirming the parent-child relationship, Michael stated calmly. Yes, Dr. Rodriguez nodded. Also, we need to consider the possibility that some problem occurred during the artificial insemination process. Emily's heart was wrapped in a whirlwind of confusion. A problem during the artificial insemination process. What did that mean? She had received treatment at a trusted clinic. All processes should have been strictly managed. I haven't done anything wrong, Emily desperately pleaded. Michael, please believe me. However, Michael's expression remained hard. The trust built over 7 years of marriage was violently shaking at this moment. The air in the delivery room was heavy, and the medical staff were also confused. There was no clear protocol for handling such a situation. Emily continued crying while looking at the baby. This small life had definitely grown in her body for 9 months. There was no doubt that she was the mother. However, she couldn't understand at all why this situation had occurred. About the baby. Just as Dr. Rodriguez was about to speak again, Emily's consciousness began to fade. Too much information, too great a shock, too complex emotions. Everything attacked her heart at once, and she could no longer process it all. Emily. Michael's voice seemed to come from far away. However, that voice no longer held its previous warmth. Rather, confusion and suspicion were deeply reflected in it. Emily's vision began to blur. The lights on the delivery room ceiling gradually grew darker. The last thing she saw was a strange expression that appeared on her husband Michael's face for just an instant. It wasn't confusion or sadness. Perhaps it was a faint smile. However, Emily couldn't understand why he would smile in such a situation. Emily. As the medical staff's voices echoed, Emily's consciousness completely sank into darkness. The long fatigue of childbirth and the overwhelming mental shock had finally taken her consciousness. Emily regained consciousness on a hospital bed. The white ceiling and smell of disinfectant announced reality. Looking around with a hazy head, Michael was sitting in a chair by the window with his arms crossed and a stern expression. The shocking events right after childbirth had not been a nightmare. "You're awake," Nurse Nancy said gently. "The baby is doing well in the nursery. Don't worry." Emily tried to sit up but couldn't find strength in her body. The mental shock was delaying her physical recovery. "Please let me see the baby," Emily said weakly. Nancy showed a troubled expression and looked toward Michael. Michael stood up and approached the bedside. However, his face no longer held its previous warmth. "Emily, let's talk first." Michael's voice was cold and businesslike. "Tell me honestly what happened." "I don't know either," Emily answered tearfully. "I really don't know. Why did this happen?" Michael's eyes sharpened. "After being married for 7 years and me trusting you, how could you betray me like this?" "Betrayal?" Emily was confused. "I haven't done anything." "Then explain it to me." Michael raised his voice. "How does our child have African features? During fertility treatment, you had relations with another man, didn't you?" Emily's heart was deeply wounded. She never thought she would be suspected like this by the husband she trusted most. "No. I've never had relations with anyone other than you." "Then how do you explain it?" Michael showed a cold smile. "Are you going to say a miracle happened?" At that moment, Dr. Rodriguez entered the room. In his hands were test result documents. "I have something to discuss with both of you," Dr. Rodriguez began with a serious expression. "Last night, we conducted an emergency DNA test." Emily's heart beat violently. These test results might clarify everything. "The results are as follows," Dr. Rodriguez explained carefully. "A definite parent-child relationship has been confirmed between Emily and the baby. The baby is undoubtedly Emily's child." Emily breathed a sigh of relief. At least it was proven that she was the mother. However, Dr. Rodriguez continued, no biological parent-child relationship was found between Michael and the baby. The air in the room froze. Michael's face turned pale, and Emily fell into confusion again. "What does that mean?" Emily asked in a trembling voice. "It means some kind of problem may have occurred during the artificial insemination process," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "There may have been an error in the clinic procedures, or a sperm mix-up may have occurred." Michael suddenly stood up. "So you're saying it's not my child?" "Biologically, that's correct," Dr. Rodriguez answered frankly. Michael's expression changed dramatically. Complex emotions of anger and disappointment appeared on his face. "It's your fault," Michael shouted at Emily. "You chose the fertility clinic, didn't you? This happened because you didn't check properly." Emily was overwhelmed by her husband's intense anger. However, there was something unnatural about Michael's reaction. She couldn't tell if he was really surprised or not. "Michael, I'm a victim too. We went to the clinic together and decided together. I don't understand medical things, so I just left it to you." Michael completely shifted the responsibility to Emily. Dr. Rodriguez intervened. "Both of you, please calm down. Cases like this are extremely rare, but there's a possibility of medical error. We need to inquire with the clinic." Over the following days, Emily focused on recovery in the hospital while desperately trying to uncover the truth. Michael barely came to the hospital, using work as an excuse, and when he did come, he maintained his cold attitude. When she contacted the fertility clinic where she had received treatment, the attending physician Dr. Parker explained with a serious expression. "We have indeed confirmed the records of artificial insemination at our clinic." Dr. Parker chose his words carefully. "The procedures were carried out normally, but we cannot rule out the possibility of some problem in sperm management." "What kind of problem?" Emily asked for details. "There's a possibility that donor sperm from the sperm bank was mixed up with your husband's sperm," Dr. Parker explained apologetically. "We need to investigate the records from that time in detail." Emily was shocked. This meant her baby might have been born from an unknown man's sperm. As the clinic investigation progressed, Emily became increasingly suspicious of Michael's behavior. His anger was certainly understandable, but the way he expressed it was abnormally intense, almost as if he were acting. One night, Emily lay alone in the hospital bed thinking. Michael's reaction, that faint smile right after childbirth, and his current cold attitude. Everything was moving around in her head like puzzle pieces. The next morning, Emily made a decision. She would investigate the truth herself. She needed to proceed with her own investigation without relying on Michael. First, she checked the fertility treatment records in detail again. The treatment schedule, records of Michael's sperm collection, the artificial insemination implementation dates, she organized everything chronologically. Then she noticed an important fact. There was a minute discrepancy in the records of the day Michael provided sperm. There was a difference between the clinic records and what Michael had told her. Emily asked a nurse to request another detailed investigation from the clinic. Then a shocking fact was revealed. Mrs. Harrison, Dr. Parker made a major announcement over the phone. "As a result of detailed investigation, we found traces of intentional sperm substitution." Intentional. Emily's voice trembled. Yes. This was not a medical error but possibly done deliberately by someone. "We may need to report this to the police." In Emily's mind, all the pieces began slowly combining. 1 week after discharge, Emily received the investigation results from private detective Jennifer Cole, whom she had hired. The contents far exceeded her worst expectations. "Mrs. Harrison, I'm sorry to say this, but this is a planned crime," Jennifer reported in a heavy tone. "Your husband Michael has been having an affair with his secretary, Lisa Chin, for 6 months. And he planned to frame you for adultery so he wouldn't have to pay alimony in a divorce." Emily's hands trembled. The man she believed was her loving husband had been plotting such a cold-blooded plan. Michael bribed a clinic technician and intentionally had African donor sperm used. He arranged it so you would be suspected of having an affair. All the mysteries were solved. Michael's faint smile, his unnatural anger, his cold attitude. Everything had been an act. All the evidence is assembled. Bank transfer records, photos of secret meetings with Lisa, phone records with the clinic technician are all available. Emily cried but felt relief deep in her heart. She wasn't going crazy. Her intuition had been correct. The next day, Emily confronted Michael with her lawyer. When presented with the evidence, Michael finally confessed. "It didn't go according to plan," Michael said defiantly. "I didn't think you'd lose consciousness and immediately start investigating the truth. For 7 years, I loved you," Emily said quietly. "Why did you do something so cruel?" "Love?" Michael sneered. "I was after your inheritance. But you couldn't have children due to infertility, and if I divorced you, I'd have to pay alimony. So I planned to frame you for adultery and steal your assets." Emily was speechless. Their entire married life had been a lie. 1 year later, in a small house along the coast of San Diego, California, Emily held her son Ethan while watching the sunset. The divorce from Michael was finalized, and he had been criminally charged with fraud and medical crimes. With alimony and property division from the company, Emily no longer had financial worries. Ethan's biological father was David Johnson, an African-American university professor. Having registered as a sperm donor, he contacted them when he learned of this incident. He was married with a wife and 2 daughters, but he welcomed Ethan as a family member. Mama, 3-year-old Ethan, who was sitting beside her, reached out his hand. Emily drew her son close and looked into his beautiful eyes. Ethan had grown into an intelligent and kind child. His skin color was certainly different from hers, but that was no problem at all. This child was undoubtedly her son and beloved family. Mama loves Ethan, Emily kissed her son. They regularly interacted with David's family, and Ethan was growing up in a complex but loving extended family. Emily had learned that there were things more important than blood relations. Listening to the sound of the waves, Emily reflected on the past. The nightmare that began with that terrible night of childbirth had ultimately taught her the true meaning of family. Not blood relations, but love creates family bonds. Michael was serving his sentence, but Emily no longer hated him. Rather, through his betrayal, she had been able to find what was truly important. Today we're going to Uncle David's house, Emily told Ethan. Hooray! I can play with Sophia and Maya. Ethan clapped his hands happily. Emily smiled. This child might not have a blood-related father, but there were many adults who loved him. That was what true family meant. As the sun set over the ocean, mother and child walked home hand in hand. Their new life was filled with love that transcended blood relations.